Hey everyone, we've been going over Doctor Voodoo's time as the Sorcerer Supreme. We'll get into a bit more of his role as the mystical guardian of Earth for a little while, as well as his pretty epic battle against Doctor Doom. For more on Jericho Drumm, and to make sure you see our future videos on this character, be sure to subscribe to Comic Island. As the new Sorcerer Supreme, Jericho Drumm decided to change his superhero name to Doctor Voodoo, better reflecting his existing qualifications as a psychologist and new prominence in the world of mysticism. Now more mobile and active in the superhero community, he returned to New York City not long afterward and reached out to Monica Rambeau, a superhero he encountered earlier when helping New Orleans recover from Hurricane Katrina, them having worked together to oust the vampires that were plaguing the city. Jericho was interested in starting a relationship with the woman, but she had been avoiding him after the two only had a brief fling. Monica was interested in the man, but was plagued with feelings of insecurity and anxiety with regards to starting a relationship. Eventually, Jericho persuaded Monica to go out with him on a date in New York after sending zombies to deliver the woman flowers. They went on a date to the Voodoo Lounge in Harlem, where Drumm flirted with her heavily, but this largely left Monica annoyed, at least at first. With a strong level of charm and confidence, Jericho was able to not only impress her, but also ask her for help on a case he was working on as Sorcerer Supreme. He had tracked down an occult artifact that had made its way from New Orleans to New York City, the legendary Monkey's Paw. A man was selling the wish-granting paw in the city, but he refused to deal with Jericho after Drumm had killed his father, the infamous Baron Samedi, back when Jericho was in his early days operating as Brother Voodoo. Samedi's son took up his father's name and became the new Baron. So, after hooking up following their date, Rambeau agreed to go after the Monkey's Paw on Drumm's behalf. At the appointed time later, the woman went to the Monkey Paw auction while in contact with Jericho over a discreet headset. The paw was being sold at the North American Occult and Paranormal Society's annual benefit auction, a lavish event attended by many powerful, well-connected individuals. After an intense bidding war, Monica won the paw for $250,000. Not long after this, Monica and her friends, Felicia Hardy and Angelica Jones, approached Jericho with concern that their other friend, Patsy Walker, was trapped in a hell dimension by her ex-boyfriend, Daimon Hellstrom. Jericho seemed intimidated by Hellstrom after their last encounter and preferred to avoid getting involved in the matter because of it. So instead, Monica used the monkey's paw to teleport herself and the other woman to hell. This deeply worried Jericho, as no wish granted by the paw ever quite works out the way the user intends. Nevertheless, the women were able to successfully rescue Patsy and Daimon, returning them all to Earth after Walker worked out a deal with the man concerning the next edition of her tell-all autobiography, which featured Daimon heavily. Everyone settled in back home, but this seemed to be what put a permanent end to any relationship between the two. Agreeing to remain friends, they ultimately moved on from one another, and largely went in different directions in their lives from here on out. Besides, Jericho was largely preoccupied with his new role as Sorcerer Supreme. In response to the being's earlier incursion, Jericho stormed Dormmamu's realm and confronted the powerful being in person, declaring the demonic entity would not be allowed to return to Earth. Though the villain scoffed at this declaration, Jericho revealed his Staff of Legba, a powerful artifact only one with the power of both the Sorcerer Supreme and the Expert of Ahungan could wield. Declaring himself unlike Doctor Strange, the Ancient One, or any other Sorcerer Supreme that came before him, Jericho destroyed a series of protective orbs around Dormmamu's lair, and summoned a barrier of mystical crows that would watch over the demon, forcing the entity to be imprisoned in his own realm, at least for a time. Though Jericho showed confidence in the face of this mighty threat, the experience was exhausting, and he felt pressure to take such bold action in an effort to prove himself as Sorcerer Supreme early on. In reality, the encounter deeply weakened him and nearly killed the man. Still, he and his brother's spirit Daniel were both confident that this would serve as a permanent prison for Dormmamu, though Stephen Strange, who stuck around as an advisor to Jericho, remains skeptical, pointing out Dormmamu has returned many times before. Though the mission was successful, the Eye of Agamotto warned Jericho that another powerful threat against Earth was still looming, but was unable to identify the exact nature of the threat. Stephen was more worried at the time about Jericho, though, who was pushing himself greatly in this new role and already reaching a breaking point. In spite of the demanding role of being the new Sorcerer Supreme, Jericho insisted on continuing his medical work at a New Orleans clinic. With so much going on, Doctor Voodoo started behaving recklessly around this time, openly stating he would push himself to the brink of death, and using dangerous magics in an attempt to predict the future, leaving Stephen deeply concerned about the state of his successor. Strange commented that he would never do these things, but Jericho also pointed out that this might be why the Eye of Agamotto chose Drumm as a replacement to begin with. Thoroughly humbled by recent events, Strange admitted that, at this point, he could only really learn from Jericho, not the other way around. With this, Stephen left, despondent about what the future might hold, and still lacking faith in the new Sorcerer Supreme. Adding to the stresses that were piling up on Jericho at this time, his free clinic was delayed in getting its government funding, and was facing a near inevitable shutdown. It was at this clinic that Jericho was attacked by a sinister creature called the She-Devil, who took advantage of Jericho's journey to Dormmamu's dark dimensions, and had been slaughtering children in New Orleans while he was gone. Their battle was interrupted by the arrival of Doctor Doom, something that both Jericho and Daniel had been preparing for, as Stephen warned them that Doom would test the mettle of the new Sorcerer Supreme at some point, with the villain likely viewing that only he deserved to wield artifacts like the Eye of Agamotto. Daniel bought his brother time by attacking the supervillain head-on, while She-Devil quietly slipped away. To protect the people at the clinic, Jericho used the distraction to prepare a teleportation spell and took he and Doom away, while Daniel's spirit was seemingly destroyed by Victor. Doom, however, had been preparing for his attack on the new Sorcerer Supreme as well, and redirected the teleportation spell to one of Jupiter's moons, where Victor had left a number of magic-consuming slugs to decimate Jericho's powers and abilities. With Doctor Voodoo now exposed, Doctor Doom demanded that Drumm hand over the Eye of Agamotto, along with all other Sorcerer Supreme artifacts, even claiming that the eye was corrupted and tricked into picking Jericho to begin with. Drumm rejected Victor's claims and refused his demands. Instead, the two battled in a fight that traversed multiple dimensions and mystical realms. With Jericho weakened, Doom was able to come out on top in this fight and seize the Eye of Agamotto for himself. However, when it showed the man a vision of the future, Victor immediately dropped the artifact and returned it to Jericho, horrified at what was shown to him. He sincerely wished Jericho Drumm luck, but stated that nothing could save Doctor Voodoo from what was to come, which alarmed Jericho deeply. The Sorcerer Supreme was left stranded in an unknown dimension, unlike any he had ever encountered before, and was forced to flee from a group of strange frog monsters. He was confronted by images of his parents, and the apparent spirit of their killer, but quickly assessed this was some kind of entity playing a trick on him, and fled back to Earth. However, the entity inhabiting this realm was quietly observing all of this, and the mysterious being set his sights on Earth. Back home, Jericho reunited with Daniel, who explained that his spirit was sent to the realm of the dead by Doctor Doom. There, Daniel Drumm met with Death herself, who warned him, just as every other mystical portent out there at the time, that something terrible was coming. Daniel also explained that since his fight with Doctor Doom, many weeks had passed on Earth, during which time a number of the frog creatures Jericho had encountered earlier had attacked New Orleans, with the city being sealed off from the rest of the world. The Drumm brothers leapt into action, intent on releasing a number of then-dormant Loa to combat this new magical threat. On the way, they encountered Daimon Hellstrom, who warned the Sorcerer Supreme that this was the work of Satan, Hellstrom's father. However, Jericho quickly deduces this is a lie, and instead, Daimon reveals he is possessed by his new master, a sinister being Jericho had already faced once before, and it nearly cost the man his life. Nightmare had finally found a way to Earth in his full physical form. For those that don't know, because Nightmare can kind of be a jokey villain sometimes, this is a very powerful being. So we'll cover this explosive event next time here on Comic Island. So be sure to stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching.